Okay, folks, this is another Poverty Hacks video. This is going to involve certain rules, processes, and procedures that are going to help you navigate a rough situation. Um, so this doesn't involve specific little lifestyle hacks. It actually involves just things that'll help you survive, especially as the economy gets harder to deal with and maybe certain localities go from high trust to medium trust or even low trust, okay? So the first is to study things like the Big Five personality inventory, the Myers-Briggs type indicator, human archetypes, moral ideals, etc. So as the economy gets rougher, you want to evolve into more of a thinker than a feeler, okay? So to some extent, stress that is lodged within your mind and body will naturally do that, but you want to do it consciously. So always pay attention to what's rewarded, you know. If you were offered $5,000, $5,000, or say 500 books of your choosing, you might go one way or the other. So I personally would like 500 books of my choosing to $5,000, even though the latter is more versatile, just given the way that my aesthetic tastes and personality happen to be, okay? None of these mental models are perfect, but they'll help you become mindful of motives, intentions, and, say, inhibitory control levels over people's stated goals and intentions. You have to be clear of the difference between incentives that are real and words that may point toward unconscious self-deception or the deception of others. Also, this one is not really conventionally shared with, say, the general public, but you want to be data-centered rather than news-centered. So if you're plugged into anxiety-instilling news feeds all the time, you might think you're going to get attacked by some, ideological extremist or something. But if you're in an area that has a low violent crime rate, then you might be a lot more likely to be injured or killed by something like a car crash. Okay, so in terms of statistical probabilities, a car crash is a lot more deadly to somebody like you, depending on where you live in this country, than the actions of some rogue, religious radical or something. But this kind of reality, this kind of everyday truth does not really make the news. It doesn't really make people neurotic or anxious and so disempower them from becoming as agentic and self-protecting as possible. So I'm a little bit cynical and pessimistic regarding the news and various other normal facets of our society, but I'm not going to get into that now. Make sure you drive safely. Another point is read the room wherever you go. In different social scenes, different things are going to be rewarded. If you want a somewhat high level means by which to comprehend this, assuming you're not somebody who lives according to instincts and impulses, but you want like sophisticated mental models to deal with, look up the less wrong essay called The Intelligent Social Web, okay? To distill what that's basically communicating in simple or layman's terms. When in Rome, do as the Romans do, okay? You may be somebody with a natural impulse toward becoming something of a moral saint, and maybe no matter what kinds of hardships and traumas you've dealt with, that core desire is still alive and vibrantly energizing you from moment to moment. But in certain contexts, being selfless, being a tzaddik, or being Christ-like gets you killed, okay? A lot of people will start to become nasty towards you once they realize you have more moral strength than them. So, unfortunately, one means by which to continue surviving can be to be openly selfish and secretly saintly. Okay, that's just kind of the rule of the game in many contexts in which people are merely pretentiously or superficially adhering to certain religious norms, but actually they're privately indulging in, 20 different grave sins a day without actually sharing that with anyone. So you got to do what you can to survive. So my apologies if this seems a little overly charged with pessimism, but life has taught me that you have to be a little bit coldly calculating in certain contexts. So you want a life in which you can just lower your guard and say whatever around people who love you. But as things get harder to deal with, you got to lead with logic. Your heart may want all kinds of things, experiences and relationships that are fundamentally nourishing to your soul. But if you are naturally sensitive and idealistic, you may find that you meet an early grave unless you learn to take on more of a tactical mindset in life. So this is just a brief little sampling of some ideas, procedures, and processes that can help you navigate life a little more intelligently, okay? I have written an essay for a small number of nerdy types about the dangers of over-optimizing life. It's buried within the, say, 500,000 words I've produced in the absence of any assistance from AI generated content. But the reason I'm not sharing that today is just because I think, the US population can learn a little bit more about leading with logic than with emotions or impulses, given that a lot of people just kind of shoot from the hip as they're making decisions here. Nobody really teaches them super deep planning or super deep financial safety or super deep approaches through which to keep themselves lean, energetic, shredded, and aesthetically pleasing. A lot of people just naturally go with the current of the mainstream of their period, and trying to go against that and become healthy, sharp, sober, and future-oriented requires various kinds of cultivations that are not incentivized in different local environments in which people are just running off of vibes rather than plans, strategy, and tactics. So this is hopefully a sampling of something that can get you to survive more easily as time goes on, okay? If life gets rougher, if groceries get more expensive, if gas gets more expensive, and there's more stress in our bodies, we're going to be running into people who are acting out sort of trauma-born schemas and suppressed emotions and stuff that are just going to be difficult to deal with. So we have to put on different kinds of psychological armor before we meet each other, unfortunately. That's just kind of the rule of the game. All right. Thank you for watching and have a good day. And God bless you. Stay sharp and stay sober.